Hello and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Darrell Amy, and I'm extremely excited that you've joined us this afternoon for a lot of actionable items that you can put to work in your business right away to create a new sales playbook. And to explore this topic, I'm joined today by my good friend, colleague, and social selling expert, none other than Mr. Larry Levine. Larry, how's it going this afternoon?
I'm doing very well, thanks, Darrell.
Great. Well, glad everyone has joined us today. And what we want to do today is share some very practical ideas that we've developed and dealers across the country are using to integrate the best of what's worked historically with the latest tools. And inside most sales forces that we talk to as we're working with dealers across the country and also in Australia, we find that there are typically two camps. There's the old school camp that says, hey, we've been doing sales this way for 30 years. It's worked well, and we're not going to change it. And then there's on the other side, there's the new school camp that says cold calling's dead. We have to use social media and all these tools. It's the only way to do it. But in reality, what we're discovering is that what we need to be successful is we need a new sales playbook that takes the best of what's worked for years and blends in the latest tools and tactics with things like social networking on LinkedIn and Twitter. And so today, what we want to do is share ideas that you can put to work immediately in your organization to build a new sales playbook. So if you think about everything as we dive in today, really what this is all about, Larry, is it's about how you fill the sales funnel, right? I mean, it's a 30, 60, 90 business, isn't it?
You're absolutely correct. It is a 30, 60, 90 business, but those who know me know I love talking about relationships. And I think if we're going to have solid sales funnels, it all starts with how you build healthy relationship funnels. And as we dive into this, that'll become apparent here in a little bit.
Yeah, so I had this big aha moment. I was actually working with one of our clients, and we were in their conference room at the dealership building out a marketing strategy for them. And the lights really came on for me when I realized this. And this is actually what I sketched out on their whiteboard right here. I realized that there are only two types of prospects. It's actually really simple, but it's very mind opening. And the two types of prospects, there are people who are searching and there are people who are not searching. There are people out there right now who know they have a business problem and are looking for an answer to that problem. And they're probably online doing it. And that business problem may be something as simple as, hey, I've got a lease expiring. I need to know what to do. Or it may be as sophisticated as, hey, how do I scan documents into my SharePoint system? It can be anywhere along that gamut. There are people out there in your marketplace right now that are searching for answers to business problems. And it's marketing's job to make sure that your dealership gets found. And when your dealership gets found, there are answers to the prospect's question and calls to action that will bring them through into the sales process. But for every person that's searching, there are dozens of people out there that aren't searching. And it's sales' job to develop relationships with those people and leverage those relationships, get in their way, in a sense, and turn those relationships into opportunities to uncover sales prospects. So if we think about it, and Larry, this is where, as we've been talking about this, this is really opened up. Is if you want a full sales funnel, then there are two funnels you need to be very aware of. One is your lead funnel, and that is where marketing is setting things up so that people who are searching for answers find the company. We convert those leads into sales opportunities. We're going to talk about some strategies to do that in our meeting today. The other funnel is maybe one that you haven't thought of before, but Larry, I know as you're training salespeople across the country in how to use social selling skills, this whole concept of a relationship funnel comes up. And talk to us about what a relationship funnel means to you. What's the definition of a relationship funnel?
Well, I guess, Darrell, yeah, I look at it a couple different ways because I think as seasoned, tenured sales reps, inside the industry, we've always been taught, build those relationships face to face. And though that is still an important aspect of how we do business, the
Hmm.
other part of this relationship funnel is how do we build relationships online? And that's something that's new for a lot of sales reps. So building a relationship online all starts with building your brand, building your brand and how you leverage your LinkedIn profile. But more importantly is how you engage and communicate and drive content online that's going to help people solve business problems inside their office. So when we start taking a look at a relationship funnel, I think it's blending face-to-face relationship with online relationships.
Yeah, that's really good. So, if you think about the old school, the old sales playbook in when it came to either filling the lead funnel or the relationship funnel, we really had a limited tool set. I mean, we could do direct mail, or we could fill people's inboxes with spam. We could pound the phones, or we could put feet on the street and go to door. And all of these things, it's not that these things, don't work today. And in some markets, they work better than others. But the reality is, in the old sales playbook, we had some things that worked, but it was a pretty limited tool set. Now, the thing that's happened, though, and this is what we have to acknowledge, and I think anybody on this call today, if you reflect on things that you have purchased for your business, or even things that you've purchased at home, you realize that the way we buy things today, the process of buying something, has really changed. And this book was put out by, if you haven't read The Challenger Sale by Matt Dixon and Brent Adamson, I highly recommend you take a look at this book. It is a phenomenal book, this one and the Challenger Customer that followed. But what was really eye opening to me, intuitively, we knew things were changing. I mean, anyone that's out in the field selling knows that slowly the buying process has been changing. But where this really got highlighted is when I read this statistic, and this statistic was actually published in the Harvard Business Review in 2012. So it's now 4 years old. It's actually getting kind of stale, but the corporate executive board went out and surveyed 1,600 mid-sized business decision makers. So not the mom and pops, not the Fortune 500, but the sweet spot clients that office technology dealers call on every day. And what they discovered in 2012, based on their research, was that buyers were over halfway through the process on average of making up their mind of what they wanted to do before they engaged a sales rep or a vendor. In other words, the ball was crossing the 50-yard line. If I can use a football analogy, we're only a couple months away from that. The ball was crossing the 50-yard line before they reached out to somebody live or face to face. And Larry, I don't know about you, but when I look at this stat, and by the way, the follow up research in 2014 showed that this stat is now averaging close to 70% of the decision making process has happened before the rep gets involved. This has staggering impact on the sales process, doesn't it?
Yeah, and what's really interesting that you bring this up is actually just yesterday I was working with a sales team and this question actually got brought up. And I said, sometimes stats, people either believe them or they don't, Darrell, right?
Right. Yeah, of course.
And what I shared with them was, why don't you do this? Why don't you go belly to belly with one of your current clients
Yeah.
and ask them, when you have a major purchase decision that's going on inside your organization,
Hmm.
A, how many people are involved in it? And B, at what point do you get a sales rep involved?
Yeah.
Go to your current clients and ask them. I would believe them as well. And
Yeah.
that's another way of taking a look at this.
It's amazing. So the buyers changed, and we call this new buyer buyer 2.0. And if you've hung out and read some of the latest research, you'll see this term being thrown around quite a bit. But basically, when we talk about buyer 2.0, I see three things are happening. Number one, people are empowered with information. And so when I had a question 10, 15 years ago, I was probably more like I was likely to pick up the phone and call somebody. Well, these days, when I have a question about anything, I pick up my phone as well. But it just so happens that my phone has Siri and it has Google, and I can ask questions on my phone, and faster than I can dial a number, I can get information. And so the buyer is empowered with information. But making that even more of an issue is that today's buyer is afraid of making bad decisions. The complexity of the technology that we sell causes fear. I mean, people are afraid of making a bad decision. Look, we barely understand the technology that we sell in this industry, if we're honest with ourselves. Think of your client. They're trying to make these decisions. They don't want to make a bad technology decision for their company. And so when you're scared of something, what do? You look for information. And so it's driving people to look for information. The other thing is people are pressed for time in today's world. So what that is doing is obviously it is driving people to search and to social, to Google and to LinkedIn. And so, Larry, when we talk about the modern consumer, this is exactly what we see, isn't it?
No, it's absolutely correct. And, before you kind of dive into that, we're all that modern consumer.
We are.
So what I'm going to ask the people that are on the call is think of yourself, think of the patterns that you all go through when you acquire, when you look for information. You
Mm.
carry the same traits of
Yes.
the people that you're calling on.
It's so true. And so you look at this modern consumer, it is, they are digitally driven, they're socially connected, and they are definitely mobilely empowered, and they've got access to information and they're using it. I mean, the reality is, whether we like it or not, and we can have our heads buried in the sand or we think it's our friend, is that Google and LinkedIn have destroyed the traditional sales process. I mean, really, we've in essence, in some ways, lost control of the first half of the sales process, and we need to get it back. So when we're talking to sales leaders, VPs of sales, sales managers, I always like to say, I want you to meet the newest members of your sales team, Google and LinkedIn. Whether you like them or not, whether you manage them or not, whether you're comfortable with it or not, whether this scares you or not, this is the reality. Buyers are using Google and they're using LinkedIn, they're using search, they're using social in the buying process, and you've got a decision to make. You can either begin to manage these members of your sales team, or you can not manage them. And I think everyone that's here on this call today would probably agree the best thing to do is manage them, right, Larry?
I'd agree.
So, if you go back to this problem, you've got the old school rep, phone to the ear, feet on the street, the black book of contacts. You've got the new school rep that is saying, "Hey, I can run my business on LinkedIn, Twitter, Google." But the reality is, what we need to do is we need to invent a new sales playbook for this industry that takes the best of what we've learned, and we have a legacy of some of the absolute best sales skills of any industry out there. And we need to take those and we need to blend them with the new school platforms. And so when we talk about the new sales playbook, and this is what we want to unpack in the rest of our meeting today, we want to talk about how we reach the people who are searching. And so we're going to talk about building a lead funnel. So marketing is more than mail and email now. We're going to talk about Google, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of these platforms and how they can be built out to create a funnel of leads coming into your sales funnel. And then for the people that aren't searching, we're going to build out a strategy to integrate tools like LinkedIn and Twitter into your sales process so that you can build a relationship funnel. If you want a sales funnel as a rep, you need a big relationship funnel. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this. Larry's going to quarterback the sales side. I'll probably offer some color commentary. And then following that, I'll quarterback the marketing side. And we'll have a good time with that. And then we'll land on a practical action plan. So Larry, let's tear it up. Let's talk about how do you fill the relationship funnel. And I think the best way to start this conversation is to share with the listeners today some of your story, because it is a fantastic story about the new sales playbook in the real
Yeah,
world.
yeah. Thanks, Darrell. I appreciate it. And Darrell, you did a great job as far as talking about blending some of the strong legacy skills with some modern sales skills. And I guess that's what that's what I bring to the table is, I spent 27 plus years inside the copier channel as a copier rep. And yes, I still love using the word copier because, in my opinion, we have to use words that people can identify to.
That's right.
So, you know, some of the best training I think that exists is taking, what we learned as legacy sales reps and modernizing it. And that's what I've done. So I go back to 2009, 2010 that was my aha moment in this industry. And, it's all in the LA marketplace is really taking a look at how can an old school sales guy modernize some of their sales skills to identify and relate to the modern buyer.
Hmm.
And it's about really developing a social presence
Yeah.
and how you build an online presence and marry an offline presence to the same. And I just said, hey, you know what? I got to learn how to play in this online sandbox.
Hmm.
But where my story really takes hold is, in 2014, 2013, I had some life-changing moments where I said, you know what, it's time to move on. And after 20 years at the same dealership, I decided to go over to the OEM side, and I left my clients behind. I
Hmm.
left 20 years of relationships behind,
Wow.
and we had a gentleman's agreement, that they would stay behind. But what I did is I walked into a major account situation with a large OEM, and I walked right into an $840,000 quota and no current customers. So for those on the call, those tenured reps, those people that are tenured inside sales departments, I don't know how many people would take on a net new position as a tenured rep with no MIF to flip. But I did it. I shared with them the skills that I self-taught myself as far as how to blend your online presence and marry it with your offline presence, but more importantly, to socially build relationships online that you can now take to offline meetings. And in the span of 1 year at this OEM, I went from number 18 to number 2
Hmm.
on a major account team with zero current accounts. I turned that into $1.3 million in sales revenue, with over 650,000 of it directly attributed to how I built brand new relationships online by leveraging my network. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. I walked out, just early last year and left a $1.6 million sales pipeline for somebody else to earn President's Club trip on. So I just share with you, I'm just an old school guy who's modernized their approach to how you do business today.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story, Larry. And for those of you who are listening in today, I think what we have here is a very rare person that has successfully blended the old school strategies with the new tactics. And there's no one more old school than Tom Hopkins himself, right?
Yeah, and even the picture's old school.
That's awesome.
But really what it boils down to, and it's the know, like, and trust factor. And we've all read, How to Master the Art of Selling. It's still on my bookshelf today.
Uh,
Yes, a bookshelf. I still love holding books. I guess, Darrell, I'm old school, right?
yeah,
I still love holding the book in my
on
hand.
my Kindle.
But but as sales reps, we have to bring in that know, like, and trust. We have to develop that. I'm a firm believer people do business with people.
Mm.
We got to build know, like, and trust. But furthermore, we have to be able to solve a business problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think the responsibility of sales is obvious, actually really simple. It's to get people to know, like, and trust, and building a relationship funnel in social media really helps you do that. And if you want to rewind again even further back, man, this is great.
Dude,
Dale,
we got oldies but goodies. We got oldies but goodies you're throwing at us. This is exciting.
what's awesome, and I don't know when was this book written. I mean, it was a long
80,
time ago.
oh, dude, almost 80 years ago.
But it's so funny because Dale Carnegie said something 80 years ago that totally summarizes the power of social media. I mean, really, you want to be successful, you've got to build relationships and change the way people think. And Larry, that's exactly what you're doing and coaching reps to do on LinkedIn, isn't it?
Yeah, and whether sales reps want to believe it or not, building relationships and changing the way people think has to occur online as well.
Yeah,
It's not just face to face anymore.
so here's a
And
little Adam Levine, Larry Levine. Tell us
no,
about
dude,
Adam.
I wish, and I know I'm not related because if I was related, I probably may not be on this call right now because I'd
Right.
probably be on tour with the guy.
You'd be on The Voice.
But no, you don't want to hear me on The Voice, dude.
Oh, no, we don't.
But
Okay, tell us your story about this account. This is a great story, everybody.
but but this goes back to building relationships and changing the way people think. And I'm a firm believer as sales reps, your network is your net worth. And
Mm,
it's ever so important now is connect with people online, connect with meaning to develop those relationships to
yeah.
earn the right to have a business conversation. And this is all that I did. So, uh, there's a large fulfillment house here in Southern California that actually fulfills the proactive orders. And through mining my network, of C-level contacts, I was able to bridge a personal introduction with the CIO of this fulfillment house.
Yeah. Wow.
And in the span of 5 minutes, just to share with you the power of search, you go on to say Google and LinkedIn's forever changed the sales process, but it's actually become sales reps' best friends because in the span of less than 5 minutes, I found out the CIO went to the same church as my contact,
Nice.
lived in the same community as myself, and I was able to craft a meaningful, well-written invite to ask this guy to connect with me on LinkedIn. In a span of about a few days, he's able to connect to me. Fast forward, I was able to build a little relationship with him, getting to know him a little bit better based on a common bond. And that common bond was we lived in the same town, knew the same person.
Hmm.
I shared with him a little bit about what I did, and I'm an open book. And I just think as a sales rep, if you can build authenticity into your sales process, you're golden. Take that sales hat off and just build a real human, genuine relationship with people. You'll be amazed at what happened. And that's what I did. He allowed me access to his network. He shared with me, if there's anything I can do to help. Needless did he know that I really wanted to do business with him. But long story short, he opened up his network. I was able to be introduced into certain key individuals inside this fulfillment house. And in the span of 6 months, I got to know 8 to 10 key individuals, got myself involved in the sales process. And at the end of this, I converted one relationship into a $400,000 software sale by mining connections. It could be done, but we have to think about how we build relationships and earn that right to do business with somebody.
Yeah, what an amazing story. And so, man, talk about the power of your network. I love this story everywhere. I've seen Larry coaching sales teams all over the country, and it's always a blast to watch the lights come on as he's coaching a sales team. But one of the things that I know you show people all the time is how to mine connections as a sales rep, and in particular, people that are second degree connections or like one person separated. And so you show it inside the United States all the time. But a couple months ago, we were over in Sydney speaking at a conference together. And the night before our presentation, I said, Larry, why don't you take a look and see if you are 1 degree of separation, if you have sales prospects in Sydney? And the way this panned out, the rest of this story is amazing. You got to hear this.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer, and I go back to this is as sales reps, we connect with people, and then my first question is, what do you do with it? And most people say nothing.
Right.
But the power behind leveraging your network is ask your network for help. Mine those connections. You want to be introduced into those first degree connections relationships. And
Hmm.
what's ever more important is how do you mine current connections on LinkedIn? And this was a hilarious story when you asked me to do this.
Yeah.
But what we just drew up here is how many, in Sydney and in Australia, they call CFOs finance directors. So Darrell just goes, hey, why don't you play off your connections? Because I'm coaching reps in Australia and I built some relationships and some networks inside Australia. Why don't you just see how many degrees of separation you have from finance directors within a 40 kilometer, this is 25-mile radius of Sydney. So on the next slide, I mean, this is what makes this so
That's
powerful
amazing.
is I have 1 degree of separation from 177 finance directors, which actually spurred a blog post because I could move to Sydney, Australia right now, and now I have 177 warm introductions into people who I already knows network. That's the power behind this is sales reps. If we're honest with ourselves, Darrell, most sales reps, if you say, how many of you guys like prospecting? They probably say stick a needle in my eye. I'd rather have a needle in my eye than prospect.
Uh-huh.
But this brings prospecting to a modern world. Yes, we still want to cold call. We still want to use the phone, but we want to leverage those relationships. Let's ask the people that we're connected to who know us for help. And what better way is to mine your connections to be introduced into the people that they know?
It's amazing, isn't it? You always like to say, let's do some simple math, right? Run this
Yeah.
out in the real world and get real practical for us.
Yeah. So this is what's the key behind this, and I was just sharing this with some sales reps yesterday, is, let's start leveraging our network. Let's start leveraging the people that know, like, and trust us the best. Those are our current accounts. I always say, build a social fortress around your current accounts as a sales rep, because if you're not, somebody else is.
Yeah.
So I urge sales reps uh, to connect to 5 or 6 people inside their current accounts. So if you can do that, the math. If you have 100 current accounts and you connect to 6 people that that's 600 people who know, like, and trust you. This is how you can start prospecting in a digital fashion, just using old school methods, which is referral selling, ask to be introduced to somebody. So simple math here. This is to me is the easiest way to add top of the funnel sales work, is if you can just connect to these people, and inside of your accounts, look for one person in one company, one person in another company, and one person in another company. Do this for a week.
Mhm.
Look for 5 people to be connected to. If you can do that every week, one CFO, and look for 5 people, that's 15 new prospects a week that you can be introduced to. If you take that a step farther, if we did this for a month, you can now be introduced into 60 people that they know that you can be introduced to. Take that over a year, that's 720 people, Darrell, that you can be introduced to based on people who are already doing business with you.
That's
And,
insane. I mean, that's
and,
amazing.
and this is what makes prospecting fun, because if you ask a rep, they go, I don't want to go out in the field, I don't have any time. I mean, we could run the gamut for another hour on excuses. Just snuggle up to your current accounts and ask them for help. So if we just, the ratios are the ratios. If
Mhm.
I'm keeping it simple here, but if you take a 10% conversion ratio, and you say, out of those 720 people I was introduced to, if I can convert 10% of them, or 72 of those, and if I can get those into some kind of sales process, what would that do to increase my sales revenue? And
Man,
how much would that do to increase my budget, exceed my budget? So if we did this and you took 72, and let's just, keep doing the math on this, but if you divided that out by a year, that's, 72 divided by 12, that's 6. I don't know about you or how many people are on this call, but I don't know of too many sales reps today that are adding 6 new sales opportunities per month. And what I'll ask, task sales managers with, is if every single one of your reps were doing that, if you had, say you have a team of 5 reps, each rep's doing that,
see,
that's 30 new sales opportunities going into a funnel every single month, Darrell.
powerful relationship funnel. And so that is social selling. I mean, give us a definition, Larry, for social selling.
I think in its simplest format, it's using your social networks to leverage your personal brand to fill your relationship funnel. It's leveraging the people that you know, building your personal brand online. Your personal brand, simple format, is you got to build out a buyer centric profile, and you got to build that relationship funnel online. Fairly simple.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you think about it, the key to winning in social, and I think your stories have illustrated this, Larry, is it's not a separate strategy for social, but to look at your existing sales strategy and integrate social media into it, integrate LinkedIn into your existing sales strategy. And
It,
that's the new sales playbook, right?
yeah, correct. And I think where people get lost with this is, if you abandon your sales process inside your dealership and you say, you know what, I succumb. Social selling's the king, right? Social selling's God. I'm gonna bow down to you and forget everything you've done. You're gonna fail at this.
Yeah,
It's taking the tried and true methods inside your dealership and leveraging and augmenting social on top of it.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so if you think about these pillars, we talk about this all the time, the pillars of social selling success. You've got to have a great profile, as you've already mentioned. You do need daily habits, but where I see the um, biggest need is the actual sales skills to be able to integrate social into the traditional sales model, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. We make light of this, you and I, Darrell, when we're working with people, is the whole transition from analog to digital. And I don't mind, as you know me, I like throwing some disruptive, controversial things out there. But I think the best way to expose this is we're hiring sales reps that have grown up in a digital world. Yet a lot of the selling aspects and sales methodologies we're teaching them are analog.
Yeah.
So where I'm going with this is not only do we have to build that profile, that link, we got to brand ourselves out to be buyer centric, and we got to incorporate daily habits, but we need to start urging and leveraging digital sales skills. Sorry about that. And it's all about social. It's all about layering social aspects and digitizing some of the things that we do as sales reps.
Yeah, that's good. And it's really been fun watching as you're training and coaching sales reps, seeing the lights come on in terms of, I knew I was supposed to be on LinkedIn but when they see the lights come on in terms of actually weaving in sales methodology with it, and you start to see the results coming back, it's really, really cool to watch that happen.
Yeah, and really what it's about, and in fact, I was this morning before this call, I was talking to a sales manager. He goes, I can't wait for you to work with my sales team because I've been preaching the same thing, but they just don't listen to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when we started peeling it back is I think they'll listen. Sales reps like listening to stories from people who are actually using it.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's you like calling it the secret sauce, Darrell. The whole
Right.
secret sauce behind this is, if a baby boomer guy can figure this out, so I'm the biggest excuse remover out there. If I can figure it out, then I think people half my age can figure this out.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and this about sums it up right here. When Credible discovered from their research that 53% of decision makers admitted to eliminating a vendor from consideration because of what they found or did not find online. That's amazing. And so you got to really think about your sales reps and the type of impression they're giving out there. And this is a pretty extreme example. Larry, is this you? Who's this guy on the left?
That could have been me in college,
You
but
only wish you had that much hair.
oh my God, I'll fast forward 30 something years on this one. But these are extreme examples. But we have to take into consideration our professional image. I
Yeah.
mean, LinkedIn and how we position ourselves, that's a professional image of who we are. So that's really, pay attention to that picture that we use. And I say, you know what, if you suit up, then that picture's got to be relevant of how you go to market.
Yeah.
I don't see too many pictures on the left. I mean, that's just an extreme. I still see, believe it or not, a lot of pictures that are on the right. And the biggest excuse I hear is I don't have a very good picture. Well, you know what? It could take you all of 5 minutes to go get you a really good picture. So, a picture speaks 1,000 words on that one.
Yeah, you got to do that. And what I really have enjoyed about your teaching on this for sales reps is that really what you're creating at the top of your LinkedIn profile. And obviously, we don't have time to go through the whole profile today, but give us a few tidbits. You call this your digital business card, right?
Yeah, for one simple reason. If people are researching us online, then let's digitize some of this as well. So
Yeah.
let's take that business card and digitize it. It all starts with, obviously, we talked about the business ready headshot, but the thing that I really want to key in on is the real estate that sits underneath your name. And when somebody lands on your profile, you got to immediately be able to create that value and to start to tell that story. And me personally, Darrell, I don't think your story can be told if it says Larry Levine, an account executive. What does that really conjure up in the mind of somebody that you'd like to get to know? Absolutely nothing other than you got a big target on your chest that says a sales rep. But the real estate that sits underneath your name really allows for you to create that value-centric message. This is the appendix to the book that you're going to get ready to read.
Yeah.
So why not bring some value to your either your client that you're getting to know better or your prospect that you're getting to know better and say, hey, this is how I can help you possibly solve some of the issues. This is related to something that we know. This is called your digital elevator pitch.
Yeah.
If you're in a networking event and somebody says, hey, what do you do? What you do should be radiant and transparent, right, sitting right underneath your name.
Yeah, that's really good. And there's so much more about this. One little tidbit that I've picked up from Larry's coaching sessions is even little things like that URL that you use. When you first sign up for LinkedIn, it'll be linkedin.com/in/18 numbers. And you can actually personalize that so you can make it memorable. You also need to make sure you've got your contact information on there. And these are little things, but your LinkedIn profile is your digital business card. And really, when someone's looking at your profile, this goes back to good old Tom Hopkins, right? The job is to get people to know, like, and trust you. You know, those buyers that are vetting out sales reps before a sales meeting, they want to know, is this guy credible, and can I trust him? And LinkedIn really does solve this formula of credibility and connection, right?
Yeah, and it goes one step farther, and that's why I really say, when I work with sales reps, is they really have to start thinking a little bit different. When somebody lands on my profile, what can I offer them? What's my why moment that says I get it, that they get it, right?
Yeah,
What issues, what challenges could I solve? And more importantly, that CFO or CIO or that person that you're really trying to get to know, they want to know, who do you know that I might know?
yeah.
And we really got to start taking things a little bit differently. We got to start really building that credibility online and paying attention to our network.
Yeah, it's huge. Well, that is amazing. This stat from Entrepreneur Magazine, isn't it?
It is, and
Wow.
I'm a big Entrepreneur Magazine fan, but let's just call the stat 80%. So let's just say 8 out of the 10 people that you're going to interact with are going to check you out on LinkedIn first. It's pretty staggering, and what I really urge, and when I work with sales reps, is let's think about building and bridging your personal brand
Yeah.
to parallel your business brand, and it's just so important. So and I just saw, as if you want to go
No,
ahead
that's
and
good.
just
I
move to the
actually
next
clicked by
slide. Yeah.
accident, but this is a good way.
That's it.
We're keeping it moving, but let's talk about this process as we kind of wrap this section up in terms of what is the social selling process, and what does a sales rep need to be thinking here?
And I think it's fairly simple because a lot of us are already doing this. We're just going to ask sales reps to do just a little bit different. So if we just keep the steps simple, it's how we research and follow. So it's how we find companies and how we learn about companies
Hmm.
socially, how we listen and hear to what's going on out there, how we connect with somebody with meaning, how we nurture and build that relationship with content, and how we earn the right through this process to ask them for a meeting.
Yeah, and isn't it great because if you do this right, by the time you meet with somebody, they actually are looking forward to meeting with you, and that you've built up a relationship of trust digitally before you even meet in person. That's profound.
Correct. I mean, I can't agree more with that.
So
When
really,
we start thinking,
yeah, go ahead, Larry.
no, so what I was just going to say is this all really boils down to, driving conversation online.
Yeah,
And, we just use a real quick, I'll just use a fishing analogy. You can't go fishing without bait on a hook. You're not going to catch anything. Well, if you want to drive meaningful conversation online, you got to provide educational content.
it's true. It's true. And so I guess this story from the LA Zoo kind of sums it all up, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'll be brief with this one, Darrell, but this is just a perfect example of social listening and hearing. But I had an initial meeting with the CFO of the LA Zoo. It's not a large account, it was a 4 machine deal that I took down. But my initial meeting with the CFO, they had just entered into the agreement. But when I coach reps, I say, you know what, that doesn't mean that you can't get to know that person. So I'm a big fan of connecting with people on LinkedIn, regardless if they're going to buy something from me or not. And I did that as a sales rep. But what that led me to do is that led me into his network of people who worked at the LA Zoo, such as the IT manager, staff accountant, and so forth. But I mentally put together a plan that at a certain point in time, I was going to get engaged and do business with sales with the LA Zoo.
Mm.
But what happened is, fast forward, I do a lot of help in the community. One of my Kiwanis friends here in the city that I live in is actually a docent. They volunteer their time at the LA Zoo. So they got me introduced even to more people. But the whole power of this is I was following the LA Zoo on Twitter. So I was listening to what they were tweeting out there, which got me involved into the marketing department. Obviously, it expands color. And at the end of this, I was just able to leverage a meeting with the CFO, got to know certain people in that account, leveraged my personal friends, leveraged the power of Twitter to listen and hear, and I sold them 4 Konica Minolta C554Es.
Nice, very nice. Well, we've been talking about building that relationship funnel, and now we want to change our focus to how do we build the lead funnel. And if you remember back, if you want a sales funnel, you need to encounter the people who are searching as well as the people that aren't searching. And we want to talk now about the marketing role. And Larry, I want you to feel free to inject color commentary inside this. But if you go back to good old Tom Hopkins, the role of marketing is very similar to the role of sales. It's to get prospects to know, like, and trust the company. And so people are searching, and what we need to do is we need to make sure we get found online, that when they find us online, that there's references and case studies, and there's information that gets them really moving towards trusting us. That's also helpful information. And the interesting thing is, a huge part of that, as we'll see, is creating content, which, by the way, helps fuel your sales team. So let's look at some of the data. This is astounding. This is a survey of B2B procurement people by the Equity Group in 2014. And you can round this number up, and it basically says 94%, round up 100%
Yeah.
of buying decisions begin online, right? It doesn't matter what you're buying. These days, this is the go-to place. And so you can dig deeper into that. And they said digital content is becoming a deal breaker for consumers who are looking for information online. Companies that are not there with answers to questions fall off the radar. And you could also insert sales reps that aren't there with answers to questions fall off the radar, while brands that anticipate questions and provide useful resources win awareness. And this is huge, because if you want to get found in Google, this goes very nicely with Buyer 2.0. You know, Google changed quite a bit, has changed quite a bit in the last couple of years. It used to be you could hire a company like ours, and we would do search engine optimization. And so we'd have a bunch of guys sitting in the back room, hunkered over their laptops, drinking Red Bull and keyword stuffing your website and doing all kinds of things now that Google calls black hat search engine optimization tactics, which gives you a clue that Google has changed. And what Google says now is, if you want to get found, since we have built our relationship based on providing fresh, relevant, useful search results, if you want to get found online, do this. Make sure your website is properly configured, keep it continually updated with fresh content, and amplify it across social media. So let me illustrate real quickly. I know there's a lot of people on this call today that want their company to get found in Google. It's quite simple. You do need to have a properly configured website, and we could talk, maybe we'll have a future webinar about that. There's a lot of things around that. One of the key things now is it needs to be mobile responsive, because over 50% of Google searches come through cell phones. But once that website's live, you've got to keep it updated. So let's say someone in your market, let's just say they're searching for the best copy machine. Google is going to go out there and they're going to say, I got this company here that's got a website that's 5 years old. It's got 3 pages about copiers. Okay, that's good. I got another website over here. This company has got a website that's 2 years old that has 5 pages about copiers. Okay, that's a little better. It's newer. Then they come to the third website and they go, not only is this website a year and a half old, let's say, or maybe it's 2 years old, it's got 5 pages about copiers, but it also has an article about copiers from this week, last week, 2 weeks before that, a month before that. In fact, this website has 25 articles that talk about various aspects of copy machines. And not only that, that content has been shared across multiple social media platforms and commented on and liked. Now, of those 3 companies, Larry, I'll put this rhetorical question out there. Which do you think Google is going to put on top?
Relevant content updated.
Yeah, I mean, they're,
Even a sales, hey Darrell, even a sales guy knows that one.
I know it's really not that complicated. I mean, there's a lot of sophisticated stuff that happens behind the scenes, but it's really not that complicated. And so smart companies now are paying attention to their website, but they're paying a lot of attention to how it's updated and shared. Now, since 94% of buying decisions are beginning online, and since Buyer 2.0 is looking for information and wants answers, this plays right into Google. It also plays right into Buyer 2.0. So I would say, if you want to build a lead funnel, the first thing is you've got to create lots of content. The experts say that you should blog at least once a week, and that you should be sharing on social networks. And if you want to go deeper into that, we have all kinds of resources on our dealermarketing.net website that talk about what you need to be thinking when it comes to sharing on the different social platforms. The important thing is that you are out there with thought leadership as a company. So what type of content? My goodness, Larry, there's all kinds of content, right? You got to think about, who are you going after? What are their challenges? And you need to think about where they consume their content. So This is kind of the formula. If you want to pull it all together, if buyer 2.0 is on the left side of the screen, the end result is selling new office technology. And if on average that buyer is 57% of the way through the buying process before they meet with a sales rep, how do we tie all this together? Well, when I was in first starting in this business, I started my career at Lanier, and they sent us off to sales boot camp, and that's where they made us memorize all that Tom Hopkins stuff, right, Larry? I can certainly appreciate how you feel initially. Yeah, I mean, all.
Can you, hey, can you imagine laying that one on somebody now?
Oh, dude, I do it all the time. It's great. Feel, felt, found. Oh, it's beautiful. I've changed the words a little bit, but it's here's the deal. They back then, we get back on track. They said, Darrell, first in wins. If you want to win a deal, you got the best shot if you're first in. Is that true, Larry?
Absolutely. I mean, 100% accurate.
So here's the problem. If buyers are doing research online, first in doesn't necessarily happen in person. It might, but more often than not, it happens online. So we've got to get very smart about digital marketing and digital prospecting. So on the marketing side, we need a properly configured website. It needs to be useful. And when we talk to dealers about websites, and every day I'm helping dealers develop web strategies. I'm looking forward to sharing a strategy with a dealer here in just about an hour. We're talking about moving the website from being kind of a slick online corporate brochure to really being more of a resource for a buyer. Now, does it need to look great? Of course. But really, we're talking about moving that website to being a resource and then keeping it updated with blogs, keeping the social media updated, because we don't just talk about websites now, we talk about all of your web properties. It's your website, it's your Facebook, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, your Google My Business page, your YouTube page. And so keeping all of those maintained so people can find you online. And by the way, a lot of people are really surprised when they learn that not only your web pages are indexed by Google, but also many of your social media posts. And all of that needs to be done in a strategy that is geared towards helping you get found online. And so marketing works to help you get first in with Buyer 2.0. So really, it's a sales strategy. And on the sales side, really what we're talking about doing is coaching the reps in how to use social platforms to get in early, to mine connections and to flip those connections into sales meetings. And those are the types of skills that I've watched Larry Levine train sales reps on over and over again. And I love hearing that feedback. So what do you do now? How do you implement the new sales playbook? Well, let's talk about sales first, Larry. What are some of the four biggest things that participants on this call can do to fill their relationship funnels?
I think it first starts with building the brand. They have to optimize, build buyer-centric
Yeah,
LinkedIn profiles. And it goes back to what you just said about companies' websites and how they market themselves and drive content
yeah,
and educate. Sales reps must do that same thing. When people land on their profiles, they have to become educational hubs. They
yeah,
have to master, they have to integrate social selling skills. They have to augment that within their current sales process inside their dealership. Whether they believe it or not, they're going to have to start sharing content, which means they're going to have to start self-educating themselves a little bit. And
yeah,
where I go with this is they just need to ask their current customers, go to CFO or go to a CIO and ask them where they consume content. Where
yeah,
do they educate themselves? And then you become that resource to provide them education. Then lastly, it's just driving conversation. It's learning the art of communicating online based on the content you're providing to get that person engaged in a conversation so you can do one thing, pick up the phone and ask for a meeting.
yeah. That's good. And if you drive conversation digitally, you're going to drive conversation in the real world as well. I think that's beautiful. So on the marketing side, I want to share three things that you can do to really begin building that lead funnel. And really there's four. I mean, your website does need to become a resource, but the first thing on the marketing side, marketing's got to create a lot of useful content. That's blog articles, that's white papers, videos, whatever, infographics. lots of content, because that's what feeds Google, and that's what Buyer 2.0 is looking for. And that content needs to answer questions. When you do that, that's going to be a big part of getting found online. And as marketing creates content for the dealership, that content becomes fuel for sales to be able to use inside their social selling strategy. So that blog article that you write on 3 ways to create a disaster recovery strategy, not only do we share that across all of your social media for the company, but that's perfect information for sales reps to share on their LinkedIn profiles to not only build their brand, but to build your brand as well. So as we wrap this up today, and we're kind of coming up against our time period, so I do want to thank everybody for joining us today. Our contact information is here at Dealer Marketing. We have a fantastic team, and we provide managed marketing services to dealers, from website design to blogging, social media management, search engine optimization, and we'd love to visit with you. And on the social coaching side, Larry, I'm so proud of what you've built at the Social Sales Academy, and I'm really excited. Even though we're just a few days away from announcing the dates, I'm excited about the LinkedIn Roadshow that's coming up this fall.
Yeah, and thank you, Darrell, for that. And it's often an overused word, but I'm going to throw it out there. I just love what I do. I have extreme passion for helping sales reps succeed, and I can't wait to get on the road and share some more of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So if you'd like to engage Larry, definitely check out socialsalesacademy.net. A ton of great resources there. In fact, you may want to take a look at some of the special guides, like the VP of Sales Guide to LinkedIn. But check back, and we'll have announcements on there for the LinkedIn Office Technology Sales Roadshow coming up in the first week in October at cities across the country. So as we end today, I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. We hope the information that you've learned is extremely helpful. We wish you all the best in success in reaching Buyer 2.0. Have a super day.